this is one of those episodes that offer little to praise because not much happens, and what does happen feels largely inconsequential. Thankfully for this episode, while the former does hold true for it, the latter doesn't, because Liko and company, Friede specifically, do learn several key details regarding what happened in Laqua 100 years ago. Plus, and more importantly, they figure out the exact location of Laqua and they make their way there with the help of the heroes, fantastically setting up the next few episodes, which are likely going to be amazing, ensuring that this episode is not a waste of time for the most part. Emphasis on for the most part, since out of the 3 parts, this episode can be divided into 2 serve a purpose and 1 does not. At least I don't think so. Friede speaking with the elder of Kumuri Town, an old lady who is over 100 years old, meaning that she was alive back when Lucius, Risto, and Gibeon came to Laqua, is one of the parts of this episode that is good and meaningful. Not only was she alive when the Laqua incident took place, but she even got to see its aftermath firsthand, namely 3 things. First, there was an explosion at the nearby Kumuri Mountain, specifically near what the locals call the place where the heavens and earth meet, which ends up being, as Friede surmises, the entryway into Laqua. Second, she saw Rayquaza emerge from the area soon after the explosion, which is likely why the locals fear it as a harbinger of catastrophe. Something Liko and company learn when they first get to Kumuri Town and they encounter the elder son, who is wary of them but still welcoming, and his son, who is also wary of them but is instead hostile towards them for bringing Rayquaza here. Given that the heroes clearly scattered like the Dragon Balls after a wish is made, once Pagogo used them to create the barrier that sealed Laqua, Lucius, and the Laquium. The fact that the Elder saw Rayquaza emerge and fly away from Laqua normally suggests that its fate post-barrier was different from that of the other heroes, which might also explain why it was the only one that had the terastalized look to it. Though now we have to wonder how it ended up back in its ancient Pokeball and under the care of Roy and his grandfather. The third thing the elder saw was a man, a scholarly type as she puts it, descending the mountain, hurt and in need of medical attention which her mother provided him with. Friede and I arrived at the same conclusion. This man was Gibeon after his apparent demise. It's unclear what he did once he recovered, though judging by what we learned in the previous episode, he returned to civilization with a sample of Laquium, which I now find odd. I didn't think so before because I did not think that people actually lived near Laqua, which is an interesting point that has not been brought up until now. I thought that since Laqua is this bountiful paradise untouched by humanity and seemingly forgotten by time and the world, that no one has ever even come close to it. But no, turns out that people do live near it, and they have done so for over a century, but they simply either chose/choose to respect it by leaving it alone, or they didn't/don't even know it existed. It was well hidden even from the people familiar with the area. In any case, I wonder if Lucius and company got to interact with these people. And assuming they did know about the existence of Laqua, did they share any information about it with Lucius and company? I feel that if they did know about it, they wouldn't have allowed outsiders to step foot in such a presumably sacred place from their perspective without putting up some resistance. In fact, the elder son has no idea what Laqua is when Liko and company ask him about it. which explains why they have no idea what happened 100 years ago, why they readily blamed Rayquaza for the disaster, and why they were willing to help Gibeon, and why he got to walk away with a sample of Laquium, something I'm sure the locals wouldn't have allowed had they known about it. So perhaps it's not that odd that he got away with this. But yeah, that's everything the Elder shares with Friede. Very interesting revelations that, as always, answer a few questions but bring up many more. The last thing I want to point out about this part of the episode is that I find it hilarious how the Elder cannot speak properly without her dentures, which she adorably has hanging off her neck like a necklace. So for much of the conversation, her son has to serve as a translator. She does, however, put her dentures on when she realizes that Friede is someone worth sharing her story with, at which point she hilariously becomes a chatterbox, to the point that she accidentally spits her dentures back out, reverting the conversation back to how it started. What a delightful and endearing character. So, while Friede learned some key information, Liko and friends instead had to deal with the rude and annoying grandson of the Elder, Yuha, who is searching for his missing Noibat. Hoping to help him, Liko and friends venture into the cavern where he lost Noibat. They soon encounter Yuha, who thankfully found Noibat, though unfortunately he also found trouble, a swarm of angry Vibrava, who proceeded to chase all of them. While they managed to give them the slip, allowing them to take a breather, they are still not safe as the Vibrava are blocking the only exit. Annoyingly, Yuha continues to be rude and obnoxious by blaming Liko and friends and Rayquaza for everything that has happened. Thankfully, Liko manages to convince him to settle down, allowing them to focus on getting out of here. Since the only way out is through the Vibrava, they are forced to fight them after Liko's attempt at a peaceful resolution via talking fails. While all of Liko, Roy, and Dot's Pokemon step in to help, with Crocalor and Tinkatuff even using super effective Fairy-type moves, there's just too many Vibrava and they are relentless. Seeing Liko and friends battling so adeptly impresses Yuha, inspiring him to lend a hand as well. A Dragon Claw from Noibat is what finally carves open a path for everyone to escape. Once outside, Yuha drops the hostilities at last, praising Liko and friends for their skill in battle. This earns him praise back for his effective intervention via Noibat's impressive Dragon Claw. He reveals that they have actually been training for a while, including today, in this very cavern. This in turn reveals that he's to blame for everything that happened, since he was unintentionally trespassing on the Vibrava's territory, which angered them, leading not only to all of them being chased, but also to Noibat getting lost to begin with. Since it turns out that Liko and friends nor Rayquaza are to blame for anything, Yuha rightfully apologizes, and he declares that he wants to be more in sync with Noibat. So ultimately, this is the only part of the episode that I don't really care for. Like, sure, it had some action and funny moments, but in the end, it added nothing of value to the story. Both the story of this episode and the narrative as a whole are left completely unaffected by this series of events. This was honestly basically filler. It doesn't help that Yuha was so unlikable for most of it. Sure, he mended his ways by the end and he even apologized, but this doesn't really change the fact that he was annoying. Moreover, having a character of the day be hostile towards the main characters initially, doubting them and actively hating on them until they manage to change said character of the day's mind via a show of skill or heroism, at which point they start praising them and even admiring them instead, is a tired trope in this anime. We have seen it countless times before, which only makes this part of the episode even more meh. About the only things I can praise about it beyond what I already stated before, that it had some action and it was occasionally funny, is that it gave the second Pokemon a chance to shine a little. It gave Dot the opportunity to make up for not using a Fairy-type move against a Dragon-type 2 episodes ago, and that it was nice to see both Noibat and Vibrava, who are cool and adorable, Noibat especially. So with this crisis resolved and with Friede's conversation with the Elder concluded, Liko and company reconvene to begin their journey to Laqua using what Friede learned to guide them. It's worth mentioning that before they set off, Chelsea is seen keeping tabs on them, proving that, like I suspected, the explorers are already in the vicinity of Laqua, biding their time. Interestingly, after surveying her targets, she heads into a building that is clearly out of place here. A quick look at the logo indicates that this is likely a branch of the Exceed company. I guess Gibeon came back here at some point to set up a sort of home base near Laqua, knowing full well that someday he would get access to it again. Or maybe he started Exceed here and later expanded it overseas. It's worth mentioning though that this looks nothing like the building shown in the previous episode, which is presumably also near Laqua. This Exceed building might be a front for that other building which just screams Villain Hideout. Or rather, they are likely both part of the same complex, judging by what Liko sees in the distance as she and the others head towards the place where the heavens and the earth meet, the presumed entryway into Laqua and the title of the episode. Kickstarting the third and final part of the episode, which is my favorite by far. Why? Because the treacherous and perilous nature of the trek up Kumuri Mountain forces the heroes to lend a hand to Liko and company. Gouging Fire takes care of an Indiana Jones boulder. Lapras ferries them across a turbulent river, with Kleavor joining in for the perfect pairing given their history to smash rocks that are blocking the way forward. Arboliba helps them up to an elevated part of the path they couldn't reach, and the Moltres confronts a Tyranitar and a Nidoking that were looking to stir up some trouble, sapping them of their strength so that they are no longer a threat. I absolutely love this part of the episode. Seeing the heroes assist Liko and company is just very cool, especially because they do so in ways that suit each of them and their particular set of skills and abilities. They lend a hand in a way that fits them perfectly, and because this is them fulfilling their role of blazing the path to Laqua like they did 100 years ago. They are essentially carrying out their purpose, their fated role as described in the legend of the ancient adventurer. Moreover, I love how this just reminds me of the games, specifically of HM moves and how you needed them and thus Pokemon that knew them to get through certain areas of the game. Late game areas especially demanded that you had access to several HM moves, like Strength to roll boulders out of the way, Surf to traverse bodies of water, Rock Smash to shatter rocks that block your path, and Rock Climb to reach elevated areas. Notice a pattern? Every hero except for Moltres helps in a way that mirrors an HM move. This just lands a critical, super effective hit on the nostalgia. I know HM moves could be annoying, hence why they were eventually removed, but they are still an integral part of my memories of this franchise. I am reminded of all the games I played growing up, which is always heartwarming. However, this part of the episode can also be a reminder of, or reference to, the more modern games. After all, HMs were technically not deleted from existence. They were just replaced by the more convenient and less irksome Ride Pokemon, Flying Taxi, Koraidon/Miraidon, Secret Techniques, etc. Which all keep the essence of having you summon a Pokemon to help you get through the environment, which is exactly what the heroes do here. So, thanks to the heroes, Liko and company managed to reach the place where the heavens and the earth meet, a part of the mountain so high up that it touches the clouds. The episode ends with Liko and friends piercing through this veil to arrive at a peak that stands above the clouds, from where they can see an impressive view, which is something you can honestly say about this entire episode. It features several magnificent sights that are quite gorgeous. This is another thing I can praise about it. So yeah, overall this episode was alright. Getting to relive some precious memories from my childhood while also getting to see the heroes in action in fitting ways that allowed them to fulfill part of their destiny, and getting to learn more about what happened 100 years ago via a hilarious and charming new character that provides a perspective we've never had before, ensure that this episode was not a waste of time. It still had some value and it still provided some enjoyment. Liko and friends helping Yuha, however, was not quite as entertaining or valuable. While it had some funny moments and some action, it ultimately felt like filler, preventing this episode from being better, thus keeping it from getting a higher rating from me. It wasn't terrible though. I've unfortunately certainly seen worse. Hence why I can say that it was just alright at the very least. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, feel free to click the links on screen. And if you'd like to support the channel and help me keep making content like this, you can find ways to do so in the description below. Your support truly means the world to me. Thank you so much for watching, and let's meet again in the next video.